Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to the Transfer Podcast on Anfield Index Pro. I'm Trev Downey, podcasting to you from my field here in beautiful rural Ireland. And like you, I'm ready to be led by the hand through the world of transfer goings on by our friend Dave Davis. Dave, how are you doing, mate?
Always happy to speak to you, sir. Always happy.
I'm looking forward to this one. We've got quite a bit going on, and yet an awful lot of people might claim the opposite. But I think there's some interesting bits and pieces that we can talk about.
Yeah.
And as ever, you've laid out our roadmap, and just to give people a little insight as to what they can expect, we're going to start with some LFC updates. As you've mentioned here in the agenda itself, there's not a whole lot going on there, so we'll be quick enough through that. We're going to then, for our club focus, have a look at Chelsea because, as we correctly predicted, that's where the crazy is going to be.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for rivals in Crazy Town, then we're going to have a look at Barca next after that, where there's obviously some serious crack happening there and a lot of questions to be asked around the whole thing. We'll then have a wider look at Europe and then finish with the Premier League and have a look at what's going on there. So let's start then, if we can, Dave, with the LFC updates. Now, I mean, in a word, it's kind of stuff confirmed that we had been on the verge of doing so on the last show. For example, Nico Williams on his way out the door, and the details there you can confirm in a minute. Let's start there just so we can wrap it up in a little bow so everybody's clear on that one, and we can move to our next topic. In case anyone hasn't heard the final setup there, what was the arrangements as Nico exited?
Yeah, a good fee, in my opinion. 16.7 million. They're not leaked the full details in regards to add-ons, but I think 16, 17 million tended to be the journalists' sort of write-ins. Happy with that in simple terms. Good move for him. Good move for us. Happy days all round.
Yeah, nothing more to be said on that one. However, one thing that we're going to be saying plenty on until it's no longer a real thing, and anyone who knows me knows that I'm sort of positive to a fault when it comes to Liverpool. And that's only a recent thing, really, I'll be honest. I used to be as a kid because we were wonderful. Then a lot of years beat that out of you. But since Klopp's been at the club, everything does seem possible. And so I am very, very optimistic that we still might do something. There's a voice in the back of my head, Dave, that's always saying, shut up, Trev, it's done. And we know it. Joycey's told you the truth. Leave it rest. But, you know, there is the Jude Bellingham story that won't go away. You know, Kloppo himself has told us that Julian Ward's doing bits still, whatever that means. But people are going to interpret it the way they want to interpret it. He did actually, though, come out and say a few things about the player in question. Would you walk people through this so that they can maybe get from the horse's mouth the latest on Jude Bellingham?
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? The devil's always in the detail, and then it depends how you do your sums, because 2 and 2 can equal 96 at times, depending on how you apply it. So, very careful the way he worded it, Klopp. So the word was problem, actually, when he talked about Bellingham. So very clear to say the only problem, well, the problem with that player is he's not available, and that is the only problem with that player. Very carefully worded there. I mean, you can take what you want from that, I suppose, but the fact he knows he's not available will probably say Trev is checked if he is in the first place, realistically. Quite clear that he's an admirer of that player. And then just very cleverly, I think in a few other interviews, especially the ones with sort of the fan channels, you know, the LFC channels while he's out there, talking about Bellingham, he's very clear talking about our midfield, and he name checks them all, doesn't he? Almost all 9 options, realistically, as in, we've got this, we've got this, we've got this. They cover all bases. So why would I want another midfielder? And mentions Bellingham specifically, a multiple number of times, which, again, it could be 2 and 2 and getting 96. But as we know, that sets off all your chat on Discord, Twitter, wherever it may be. And I do get it. It's now going to be, right, so if we can get someone out, and I'll let you play blankety blank and insert whatever you want possible, but if we get someone out, does that free it up? So obviously that will start the wave of comments that way. So he's been very clever, Klopp, with the comments he's made. He's not shut it down, let's put it that way. It's still it'll blaze on all summer, I think, this one.
A lot of people were doing exactly what you would expect, and I found myself just trying to avoid for that reason, because I'm the same as everyone else, and I get overly analytical like you suggested, and you're trying to pick apart what it is the man is trying to tell us. And then you have to factor in, as I always try to remind everybody, and I know our pal Dave does as well, and it's like a shock to some people. It's almost like heresy, but you have to remember that Klopp does often talk a lot of shite for the fact that he has a great take on most things in the world and seems to be a genuinely decent man and not given to the sort of crap you expect from other managers. He will obviously not give the full truth if it's not to the club's benefit. And so I think the smokescreen around how wonderful all the midfielders were, his indignance, in fact, at being asked questions about it, that really had the feel of amateur dramatics. Klopp, Kloppo doing his Sunday night rehearsals down at the local parish hall for his part in the pantomime, because it just didn't ring true. Because if that was genuine, what's he doing? Why are we talking to too many? I mean, let's be honest. That's just, and I don't know. And again, it's not to be critical of a man I admire immensely. I don't know that it helps, that nonsense. I don't know that it helps. I think everyone would prefer if you went, obviously we'd like to address that. And I've heard, Dave, and this is the question I'm building to very awkwardly here. A lot of people are reckoning that, one of the main reasons he doesn't want to talk about any more incomings in the midfield is in case the poor lads will have their feelings hurt. And I've genuinely heard this put across by people like, he's not going to say that, because at the time I think he was being interviewed he was being interviewed in a panel where there was a couple of midfielders sitting opposite him. And then other people in articles saying, well, he's not going to, because lads will have their feelings hurt. I'm like, they're not that fucking delicate. And honestly, Dave, I mean, I don't know if I buy that. And if I do buy that, how fragile are these little blossoms? You know what I mean? Nobody worried about when we were being linked with Darwin Núñez whether any of our strikers would get pissed off. So what's your take on that? What's your take on the veracity or honesty of his chat around this issue?
It's a difficult one. I say at his root core, Klopp is one of, I say, the most loyal managers I've ever seen. He's very loyal to players. He gets the most out of them, whatever stage they're at. That's the right phrase of their career. So I think that plays a part in it. On the second part, he's never going to be fully honest. I think people have got to remember that. He's never going to be fully honest and say, to be honest, here we are. This is my midfield. If I get a half-decent offer for Ox, I'm just looking to ship him out, basically, because let's be honest, he played about 10 times in total last season. He's not just going to lay that on the table as well. So I think, to link to the original point, he's not beyond talking crap, but it's got to be what, there's a context to why he's saying that and what he can do. He's also not going to go, well, what everyone thinks of Naby's got injury problems, Milner's hanging on, it's just to see the youngsters through. So we've got to keep that in mind. I just think, though, he sometimes leads himself down the path of trouble. He could have just kept it really statesman-like to go, yeah, that's a quality player. Absolutely, we're aware of him on the market, but, we've got the midfield we'll see what happens. Just something really brief like that. I get what you're saying. I do get totally that we shouldn't be wallflowers to them, but if he's not going to sign Bellingham, he might be calling upon these players. And they say if he does need Oxlade-Chamberlain at any time, Trev, and he said, to be honest, he's knife choice and I want shot of him, is he really going to step in for you and really give it his all? Which we know how big Jurgen is on the the loyalty, the team building aspect. It's one of his big strengths at the same time. Let's not lie on that. So I do get it, but I think it's a load of BS, some of it. But I do get it, put it that way. And that was a long answer, but a long answer to a long question.
No, absolutely, and I appreciate it, because it's not a one-liner, and you're right. If the question was several shades of grey, the answer has to be two, and it's just a fact. But I sometimes I think that people are a little bit simplistic in the whole "well, Jurgen would never lie" thing, and you have to have a little bit of sort of I don't know, understanding of the scenario as well, and why people say what they say. We are 2 hours and 15 minutes away from the second friendly of the pre-season. And with that in mind, we are within our rights to be wondering about the squad makeup, and we've heard rumours that it's going to be a little bit more realistic looking today in terms of two solid teams for half each. That's the rumour. We know that a person that's not going to be involved in today's is Ben Davies, who's still. I with Cam on the Anfield Index podcast during the week. I read him out a quote or a headline from News Now. And the headline was outstanding player linked with move away from Liverpool. And I said, who do you reckon this is? And of course, it's Ben Davies. And it says, Ben Davies, who was described as outstanding on his arrival. Now, I mean, we wouldn't know, Dave, because we never get to see Ben Davies. I feel tremendously sorry for this kid. I really do. But it looks as if he's on his way out the revolving door and headed towards the Championship.
Yeah, it's a bit of a sad tale almost, isn't he? I mean, let's be honest, we were desperate when he came in, and we thought he'd probably be used just because he was a central defender. It's obviously never worked out for him. In simple terms, football's a ruthless game. He's probably not good enough. Outstanding maybe for the Championship, nowhere near for Liverpool. And as you said, Championship clubs galore are interested in. We know Middlesbrough, Blackburn. Interestingly enough, Sheffield United didn't go back for him, which maybe says something, I don't know. Stoke have also inquired. So his agent is almost just doing a tour with him at Championship clubs at the moment. So a decision will be made by him, and naturally they've got to meet Liverpool's asking price, which suggestions are anywhere around the 3 million mark gets it done, because we already made the money back with the loan fee to Sheffield United as it was. So he's not really cost us anything. It's just get yourself a Championship move and crack on with your career.
Yeah, and fingers crossed for the kid that happens. Most of us are sort of resigned to the fact that outgoings are all that remain in terms of the squad makeup of Liverpool. And two lads who might well be atop that list are Nat Phillips and Reece Williams. Now, of course, pre-season friendly, of course, weird selection, of course, half-hour spell, but a lot of criticism slung the two lads' way on the back of the latest outing. And, I suppose we have to be a little bit realistic here. I think an awful lot of people are getting very excited about Nat and thinking, well, he was the second coming of I don't know, some sort of stereotypical English centre-half, totem. It hasn't really worked out that way. It doesn't look as if Bournemouth are willing to pay a transfer fee for him. As for Reece Williams, he's so far down the pecking order now, he must be thinking, well, what's the point here? Because certainly I'd imagine best case scenario he could hope for if he was to hang around and that was to go is maybe sixth, certainly fifth. They'd be very, very best at the outside, because you'd imagine it's going to be Fabinho stepping back before he would start. So talk to me around those two guys and what you think the likely future is for them.
It's Nat. If we look at Nat first, it's such a difficult one, because you're right. There was that expectation. It's going to be made a permanent move to Bournemouth. He goes there. Everyone's happy. Great move for everyone. He's playing the Premier League, etc. For whatever reason, at first, they've not executed that permanent move. And then saying from the people that we've been discussing it with, from the few sources that we have, the indication was Liverpool were almost using him as the backup, the get out of jail free card, that they were going to tie down Gomez, which they did. We've got 4 centre halves locked down there now. So he was the pull in case of emergency option, i.e. in case we have an injury crisis, but not really going to be used. But That didn't obviously seem to really sit. So then the latest we've had is Bournemouth have made the loan inquiry again. And we were almost thinking about that with a small loan fee, which I think we said before, it doesn't really seem to make sense for any party at all. Nat talked in pre-season about wanting, a settled picture playing at the highest level. It's a really, really bizarre one. The latest we have is that Leeds have come in. Now, I don't know if that's like a perm alone, but Leeds are apparently in for him and inquiring. He's going to have to make a decision, really, on that. And I'd hope, in the nicest way, it's just a quick conversation with Jurgen and Nat saying, what do you want? Listen, I want to play football at the highest level. Let's get it sorted. I don't think it helps to have him hanging around. That's my personal opinion, just to be clear on that. So I just get the feeling this moves Nat towards the exit door, whatever it is, which then naturally revolves to Reece, because if Klopp does want that get out of jail free card, pull in case of emergency, as you said, there's that Reece then the final option, but you probably still have Fabinho. I know Van der Berg is looking at offers, as we said last week, but I'd say he's a better option, even though he's probably departing one way or the other. It's just very bizarre. The problem you've got with Reece is his move to Swansea last season was not a success. It wouldn't be classed that way by Swansea fans at all. So it's who's going to take him at, at what level and what real fee you're going to get, whether it be loan or perm. So I think we'll see developments on this quite quickly. There's offers what I know is we said there's offers on the table for that. So I think we're going to see this quickly in terms of he moves somewhere or we are going to keep him as that emergency. But just being honest, Trev, I just think it suits both those parties to get out of Liverpool. They had the nice day in the sun. I don't want to downplay it at all. They did good work for us, but I don't want to overplay it at the same time. Don't think they're going to make the grade. Let's do what's best for the lads. Simple as that.
Yeah, I'll be forever appreciative. But I did hear it spun in an altogether different way, as is his wont, by young Hendrick, who said Klopp got us that position with those two lads at centre half, which is another way of looking at things and maybe putting it into a little bit of perspective. Not quite so rosy with the tinted spectacles. Let's see how that pans out. Certainly, I think there'll be movement on one or both. But we'll move away from Liverpool now and on to the highly entertaining place that is Chelsea. And I saw a tweet earlier on, Dave, which went along the lines of, it had a picture of a very smug-looking American who happens to play for them, sitting there in his new kit, wearing his shades, and they were one of these like little check boxes. This is how Chelsea fans feel when they realise that we've got the best manager, the best squad, the best attackers, the best defenders, the best blah blah blah, and wow. The hubris is stunning. But I love it because the more lads like that go out on a limb, the happier I am.
Yeah.
But there is quite a lot going on. Now, the way you phrased it here is that the Chelsea madness starts. We've got franchise players versus Tuchel's ideas. Set it up for us, and then we'll go through the various personnel and names, big names that have moved or are being linked with moves.
Yeah, on record, obviously I despise Chelsea as a club and what they stand for, but from a transfer perspective, they are the entertainment, or they're one of the big headline entertainments this summer. And my word, Sweeney Todd, the demon dealer of Stamford Bridge, is setting this up so nicely, Trev. Literally, if you look at the players they're signing or they're linked with, it's headline franchise players, as we'd said before. Obviously, he's been looking at the American style of trades as well. You've then got that very much against Tuchel's ideas, as we said, when they've moved out the Bruce Borks, Maria, can't pronounce the surname, Peter Keck's moved on. Very much Tuchel's, whether he wants it or not, as we've discussed, taken that rise up to involved in transfer dealings. I would love to know, which we probably never will, how does this actually suit your ideals? Because if you look at the players they're targeting, they're not young. If you look at the players they've got, Sterling, as we know, which we'll come on to, not young. Koulibaly, definitely not young. As we know, that one's pretty much done. It's interesting. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in those conversations, but yeah, for context, Chelsea are going to be absolutely fascinating all summer, Trev. Simple as that.
Well, let's knock over a few of these skills. Raheem Sterling is over the line as a deal,
Yeah.
and it's objectively, you would have thought, a decent move. You can talk to me around the money if you want and whether you think it's value, but just in terms of a player in who might suit them, I think that's really good business on their part. You could see a rejuvenated Sterling doing really good things there. Another City player looking like he's moving towards Chelsea is Nathan Ake, who originally was bought for what looked like an inflated fee because it was Manchester City, and now is being sold for a similar, if not slightly bigger fee, having done very little to justify that original fee. And it feels a little bit hinky. I'll go no further than that, and we'll just leave that sit. People can interpret that whatever way they like. But again, around the Sterling deal, which is done, and the Ake one, which is quite close, what do we know?
Yeah, I mean, Sterling is a big name. Whatever you say, he's a polarizing character, Raheem Sterling, isn't he? People tend to love him or hate him, unfortunately, one way or the other, whatever your opinion may be. So, like you, some people look at it as great business for, they're saying, about 47.5 million. Some people think it's a great move for City. I think the other interesting thing I saw is the wages, at least £300,000 a week. So, with bonuses, they're talking he's going to be about the fourth, fifth highest paid player in the Premier League, never mind at Chelsea. So we'll come on to that later because there's a few ructions coming out from that. Ake's fascinating, really. If you look at the fees he's fetching against the ability he has, crazy, absolutely crazy. The two I'm really struggling to sort of mirror together. Additionally, the one thing that also just is a little bit astounded, if that's the right phrase. Left-sided centre-backs seems to be Sweeney Todd's favourite at the moment. Like, if you're looking at Koulibaly, Ake, I know people say Ake can play left-back, absolutely, but left-sided centre-back, that type of thing. And another one that we'll come on to as well. It seems to be like playing Pokemon, I don't know, catch 'em all type of thing. So it's an interesting strategy, but again, anything but dull at Chelsea.
I saw some PR stuff that was released around Sterling's signing. I don't know if you saw this, Dave, but it was sort of like an extended 20-25 minute video just showing him settling in on his first day or days. Yeah. The only part I watched was a part that was thrown up specifically to kind of lampoon the whole thing, and it was him having a little chat with, I think, Malang Sarr, and he was saying, Sarr said, "Oh, you happy to be here?" He said, "Yeah, I'm really happy to be here." And he sort of leans into it. He says, "So you a centre half or a left back, or where do you play?" I was like, okay, that's like something I'd say, Raheem, but this is your stock in trade. So I thought that was a bit weird. In terms of other things, you mentioned Koulibaly earlier on, and this is obviously a massive story. And the minute I saw that, and I wanted to talk to you about this, the minute I saw that, I went, that's a fantastic move for them, because every time I see Koulibaly, he impresses the hell out of me. And it seemed to be just like literally from the blue, that story. And I don't like it. And I'll tell you why I don't like it, Dave, is because even though he is 31, whatever he is, I'm always impressed by him. I think he's a fantastic presence, and it's an area that they need addressing. And so it seems sensible, and I don't like it that they're addressing it with a good footballer. That's where I stand on Koulibaly. But I like your take, obviously, which is the point. And maybe Kipembe as well is being mentioned. So talk to me around that area.
Yeah, Koulibaly is a fascinating one, like you say. He's one that's been touted for a move to the Premier League and a big club, like Spain type of thing, for many, many a year. But it looks like it's finally happened at 31. I think there's a bit of suspicion that Napoli and notorious difficult operators in the Lyon category, so maybe that's been the delay. And now that he's got a year left, literally, they have to take a fee or he's going on a free. So that's part of it. It's genuinely, Trev, a fascinating one, Koulibaly, for me. I actually think, it's going to sound a strong statement, he will define a large part of how successful Chelsea's season is. Because if we assume, and this is an assumption, don't get me wrong, that Tuchel keeps like a 3 centre halves at the back, you'd think maybe Thiago Silva would be the sweeper, if you want to call him that, the game reader. Koulibaly on the left-hand side of those three, being an aggressive front foot player. I mean, he's an absolute unit, isn't he? Just physical attributes are all there for Premier League football. So how he settles will be big. The one thing I'm just saying, it's intriguing. Like, a lot of it looks simple on the surface. It's a late time to come to the Premier League, and we know the pace from Italy, Serie A up to that is a massive increase. So it'll be interesting to see how we do. However, I think, maybe unfortunately, because I'm not a big Chelsea fan like yourself, he may do well, and that will be interesting. So I just think for Koulibaly, he will have a big definition on Chelsea's season overall, if and when it most likely happens. Kimpembe, I was like, okay. I was trying to really sort of rationalise that one, especially with Ake coming as well. Thinking, is Ake going to left wing back? Is he cover? Because obviously Chilwell's back as well. I know they want rid of Alonso, as we said. But he's not a bad player. I'm not saying that by any means. I think he's one that maybe because PSG are in the Champions League, sometimes a FIFA-style player, as I call them, reputational player rather than better than what you see. People might think differently, but that's my honest thoughts. I don't really understand that one. I'm not going to lie. It's not like he can play on the right, which would have made more sense. So I'll be fascinated to see what they do with Kimpembe. But my honest thoughts in simple terms were, Trev, if Koulibaly's going to do well, which I think he might, play well, which I think he might, why get Kimpembe, which I don't get. So long story short, that's where I think it is.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. It has a feel. It's starting to have a little bit of feel of, real flexing of the muscles here and getting in a whole lot of players. And of course, that makes us Reds, some of us at least, get very, very itchy and antsy and wondering why we're, in inverted commas, standing still. So do bear that in mind, folks. There's going to be a lot of that kind of chat going on over the next couple of weeks, so maybe plug the ears. But there's a story that kind of links the two sections that we're going to do, that we're doing currently and what we're going to do next, which is the Mr. De Jong. We'll finish with that one because, like I say, it's a good kind of link and segue into talking about Barca, where there's more crack going on as well. But we'll just finish with two other stories that are Chelsea related, obviously because they have a lot of money. They have been linked with one of the players who's available and will cost a lot of money, which is Cristiano Ronaldo. And the other thing then to balance up then is they have a bit of a situation where they need to make sure they hang on to some of their established talent in the form of Mason Mount and Reece James, who have contract situations that need addressing. So maybe start off with the Ronaldo one, and then if you move on to the contracts for the boys, we'll finish then talking about Mr. De Jong.
That's fine. Right, guys, strap yourselves in. We're about to go through the exciting Chelsea whistle-stop tour. So we'll start with Ronaldo. As we said, been linked. There was clearly talks between his entourage, Mendes especially, and Chelsea. Simple terms, that is now not going ahead. It's been a few have broken that. Not really clear who's made that ultimate decision. You can speculate either way, but it's a complete no-no on that one. Contract-wise, Sterling's not caused ructions, that's the wrong phrase, but it's just put a few questions alongside a few players. So naturally, when it's confirmed that it's 300,000 plus, top 4 or 5 earners, you look at who Chelsea got, who's contractual-wise got any question marks against them. And the two, interestingly, that have been now discussed are Mason Mount and Reece James. So expectation that Reece James would sign a new contract with a few years left, but I'd love to know what Reece James is demanding, because let's be honest, he is a star at Chelsea, whatever you think about him. So won't be surprised if he starts asking for, hold on, Raheem's got 300 grand a week, what am I getting? So that might not be as smooth sailing as they want. Same with Mason Mount. Again, an England youngster. You get your English tax, don't you, as we know, Trev? So I think that is going to be a few that are not going to be as straightforward a negotiation as possible. I still expect them to get done. That's my honest opinion. But I think they'll be thinking, yes, Raheem, you've just got us a nice little pay packet bumper there. So that's the contract situation. And the pièce de résistance at the Chelsea circus, the De Jong midfielder scenario. So naturally, the conversation with Chelsea and Barca tended to be about outgoings, as in Alonso and Azpilicueta. However, didn't really expect this to be discussed, but Chelsea are looking at midfield options. So De Jong then comes on the table, and naturally, well, what a circus this has been with the United Barca, and we'll revisit that later. We won't go in too much. Chelsea have asked though. That is what we know. What's his situation? Is it possible? So it's just another little snippet there, which we'll come on to. And then the other one that may interest Liverpool fans a bit more is they have made a solid inquiry for Matheus Nunes. Now, the reason that is worth mentioning is with the Bellingham side, we know Nunes has been talked about as if there is a move this summer, that's a potential. Again, we can speculate on that, but what we're hearing specifically is Chelsea have made a solid inquiry for Matheus Nunes, really athletic, box-to-box midfielder with plenty of raw ability. So, I don't know. Since he signed that contract, Sweeney Todd's just out his cage, Trev. He is going absolutely insane. But listen, he's giving us a show each week, isn't he, at the moment? So long may it continue.
Yeah, absolutely. He's the entertainment meister for us, and the only ones to rival Chelsea are Manchester United and Barcelona. And we're going to have a little look at Barcelona now, but via Manchester United. So let's start with the De Jong story, which you've alluded to. Obviously, Chelsea asking questions, but also there's a weird situation. Liverpool fans and rival fans, non-United fans are loving it because it would appear as if it's very much not what the player wants, a move to United. But it's a complex situation that I don't think people just go off and take a snippet of information and run with that and make up their own arguments, as is the case in every walk of life now at the moment. It doesn't matter whether you're talking politics or history or whatever. People just pick a fact and they ride that fact all the way to their corner and they shout for their team. But I'd rather if you maybe gave us a little bit of the insight that you've had from looking at this deal. What is going on with the Young situation? It seems needlessly complex, and it does seem like there are many different push and pull forces going on.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of phrasing it. There's so many elements to this. You can't just look at it in one piece. In fact, probably going through them, I wouldn't be surprised if I even miss one. So if you think about it from the player's point of view, first of all, actually quite happy at Barcelona. There's no indication he wants to leave. That's been the suggestions from his agents. So where's the negatives? Well, Barcelona clearly want to sell him. The couple of reasons for that are that they owe him a fortune in wages still, back pay, if you want to call it that, from the deferments last summer. And naturally, when the La Liga set the rules out, so, you're not just going to be able to defer it again for your players. They've got that issue, so to speak. So, he is the highest wage earner, is what we're hearing at Barcelona. So to get that off the books would be massive for them. So despite what they're realistically saying, the indications are Barcelona would like him to leave. So bringing it back to the player doesn't necessarily want to leave, but if you're not wanted, Trev, then you're going to start looking elsewhere. So who's on the table? United. And United, like they get played so often in the transfer market, have got played again, if it happens. So the initial talks of the fee are now up around, with add-ons, €85 million. So we're talking about 71 million all in, which isn't the starting price. Trust me, it was touted around sort of the 59 million mark at one stage. So in typical Harry Maguire style, United are up in the ante, and it would be surprising me if they get pushed again, because it's Man United. Their execs have flown out to discuss that, and obviously Barca are nudging that up all the time. It really is, though, a game of brinkmanship, Trev, because De Jong does not want to go to United. We know that. They're not in the Champions League. It's not a move he wants. They are offering a big whack-off wage, so that might be the compensation, but he doesn't want the move. Barcelona really do want him to move, because at the end of the day, they need those wages clearing off the books. They need that back pay sorted one way or the other, so they'll be trying to finesse, if that's the right word, a deal in true Barcelona financial style. And then his agents are in this, because his agents are naturally saying, well, hold on, Frankie, you're not just giving up money, so to speak. We don't owe them anything. So it's it's a big tussle. All in the meantime, it's clear that Barcelona will accept offers. As we said, Chelsea are asking. I would just wonder if there's another club comes asking, according to our sources. If Barca are smart, they can just panic United into even more. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear something like, actually, he's now going for 78 million, a little bit more on the deal. And it's happened, shall we say, one way or the other. If it does happen, though, it is going to be the most miserable shirt presentation anywhere you'll see, because all the fans, United fans, brilliant, we've got him. Can you imagine how sad De Jong's going to look? He doesn't want to go there at all. He's going to be crying at shirt presentation. But this is literally the saga of the summer. Predictions? I think you'll hear something like Chelsea or one other club may come in, but I think just United being United, they are going to put a stupid amount of money, more than they already initially wanted to, on the table, and Barca kick him out the door. I know that sounds terrible, but listen, we'll talk about Barca's financial situation. They need that to happen because they're poor financial management, so they need it to happen. Simple as that.
You couldn't have teed me up better, because I wanted to segue from this to the most underwhelming contract extension video I've ever seen in my life, which featured Ousmane Dembele on a whiteboard changing the amount of numbers, changing the year on which his deal was about to expire.
Yeah.
And I just thought, holy shit, is this actually... honestly, Dave, I thought it was satire. It was like something from The Office, but no, it's real. And it looks like he's going to hang around. Before we finish off with the more kind of tantalizing stories about Lewandowski and Rafinha, the Dembele thing's a weird one, because I imagine Dembele's on big money there too.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Like, his contract's coming to an end, so Dembele's agents naturally expected the offers are going to come flooding in on similar money. The problem he's got is because of his injuries and his previous behaviour, getting the move and the way he's been, a lot of clubs are just not prepared to take that chance, which I understand. The raw ability's there. I'm not going to doubt that for 1 second, but no one's going to take that chance that he expected to come in terms of wages, bonus fee, because he's a free transfer, so a lump sum for signing on. So they kind of scoured the market, and a little bit it's a roundabout turn, almost a tail back between the legs of, would you put anything on the table for me, Barcelona? So they've had those chats, because they did want to originally. So Laporta said, yeah, we'll take you, but there's going to have to be a deal made where, that back pay that we had issues with, you're going to have to give that up, and you're going to have to take a bit of a reduced salary. I mean, how much is that a full tail between your legs? Embarrassment almost for the player, Trev. And then just to sort of the cherry on the cake for that deal, I'm not being funny, I'd expect a non-league team to come up with a better presentation than that, in all honesty. I mean, a whiteboard and a marker, it's like a 9-year-old at school type of job, isn't it? Type of thing, realistically. It was almost embarrassing for the club and the player. So I think it just shows how far Dembele's stock's fallen, how skint Barca are. They probably can't afford a graphics video as well as the transfers they want. Just a bit embarrassing all round, really.
And how is it then that they're still being linked with really desirable talents like Rafinha, who actually looks like he's close to agreeing a deal, and Lewandowski, who is being linked as well, although it's far from a thing yet, and people like Koundé. What explain is it just the lure of Barcelona? I assume it's that.
I can only assume now, having reached two conclusions I'm going with. Number one, Ant and Dec are doing their Saturday night show, and they're controlling Laporta, we'd say this, do this kind of thing, and it's all a bit of a skit. That's number one. Number two, insert mind-altering drugs, like maybe LSD for Laporta, something like that. That's all I can assume, Trev, because it's just insane. It was quite clear at their extraordinary meeting they needed this money to survive. We don't want to sell the family silver, but we're going to have to. But those were the words. We need this money to survive. So up to 267 million comes in. Remember that. Money to survive, as in pay debts, back pay wages, keep the club afloat. However, Trev, that then is leading to, as we said, the deal for Rafinha, which we're led to believe is around the 55 million mark. I was like, hold on, we thought this was needed to sort of keep you afloat. Lewandowski is rumored, again, it's going to be around the 50 million mark for a 34-year-old crazy. And then Koundé, again, the fees being talked about are around 40 to 45 million. I just really can't reconcile it in the terms of we need this money to keep us going to survive. Was it just a blag? They're just like, listen, honestly, like Laporta sat there going, lads, we can get this money out of them and just rinse it for transfers. Like, honestly, just keep throwing some empathy story where we're struggling, we love the club, blah, blah, blah. And they'll just keep giving us transfer money while we rack up debt. It is absolutely insane. But it's almost not, because it's Barcelona, if that makes sense. Nothing should surprise you anymore. I guarantee you, Trev, they will take more money. They'll pull one of those economic levers, as they call it, and say, listen, we need it now to survive, that type of thing. And they will spend more money on players. Do you know another analogy I can use? Do you know when Ariel bring out a new brand and they say, oh, this is the best one, Ariel? Well, that's the best one, okay. And then they bring out Ariel Ultra. Oh, Ariel Ultra does what Ariel didn't do. Hold on, you said Ariel was good. No, but Ariel Ultra is the best. And then they'll bring out Ariel Ultra 3000, which does what Ariel Ultra didn't do. Hold on, I thought that was like, no, trust us, they're just conning people time and time again. It's actually amazing what's happening, and this is the real world. It's not a sort of fantasy story, so to speak. It is absolutely real world. And listen, long may it continue, because it's fascinating.
You're right, man. It has all the evidence and sort of suggestions of just tremendous spin and PR, and I love that phrase, pulling the economic lever. Yeah, that's just that's just pure shit talk, isn't it? But it's just a thing that people just say. It's just a thing you said. It doesn't mean anything. But anyway, interesting stuff, and I can't tell you how grateful I am to the likes of Chelsea and Barcelona for their madness. There are some other things going on in Europe with some of the bigger clubs and well-known names. Bayern Munich, of course, notoriously well-run outfit, both from the staffing point of view and the player point of view and the business side of things and all of that. And they seem to still be getting linked with De Ligt. There's an interest. I know. I think you've quite strong opinions about this kid. And obviously, the Lewandowski situation is far from clear, as is the sort of whirl of stories around Serge Gnabry. Maybe take us through what you think is happening currently with Bayern and those guys in particular.
Yeah, he's still De Ligt, the Dutch Harry Maguire, still rumbling on. So it's quite clear that they want him. I still don't get this one. I'll wait to be proved wrong. But the fees they're talking for a year left for a guy who's flopped really at Juventus astounds me. But it's quite clear they want him. The problem they've got is because of the fee wanted, they're going to have to sell Lewandowski. That is a big, big thing. The most interesting thing is, Trev, is since he's come back, I've never seen a more disinterested training session than Lewandowski. Literally, they had videos out of it. It sort of took storm on Twitter a bit. Didn't do half the running, wasn't listening when Nagelsmann was, giving out instructions or sort of geeing them up, just literally turning his back. At one point, it was amazing. He was in the losing team, and they were instructed to do press-ups, if you lost like a standard sort of training task. Just didn't do them, Trev. It was amazing. And then in one of the shots, one of the short 5-second snippets, his team with the bibs on that had lost are doing press-ups. Trev, he's got a cup which looks like he's drinking coffee, which says Kit Kat on the side of it. Absolutely unbelievable. Do you know what I mean? This is not a skit. This is like a world-class striker just basically tossing it off at Bayern Munich training. So it's been known all summer he wants to go. Literally is now just couldn't make it more clear. And then you can quite see there's a few people try and talk to him. He speaks to like 2 people the entire time, just ignores people. So it's unbelievable. Yeah, what's happening there? I didn't think he would do that, shall we say? But it'll be interesting to see how that develops. And then Gnabry, linked with every man and his dog, understandably, for a player of that character with a year left. Their suspicions are he's just done a Leroy Sané on them. Sané did the same, with a year left and is touted around Europe again. What happens? Gets a whacking wage increase. Gnabry looks and says, there's all this attacking talent. I'm going to lay it on thick here. There's Coman, I'm not going to play in his position. Sané's there. You brought in Mane, all these top talents. So I'm probably going to start looking around, as we know, seeing what you can get on a free. So what do Bayern do? They come back with a slow down surge. Actually, we'll put this on the table. So again, I think he's just going to have played them Leroy Sané style, and it looks like he's going to end up with a great whacking wage increase. So, but not quite as excited as Barcelona or Chelsea, but Bayern Munich are doing the Bundesliga routine of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we can't rely on the biggest and richest club to do that, then we're going to be in trouble. So again, more fun for us to keep watching those spinning plates. The currently biggest club in Italy, Juventus, are doing business as well. We had already flagged up the Paul Pogba and Di Maria moves. You had already sort of said that they looked likely weeks ago, and it looks like they're done. I mean, we have talked about this again. I've asked your opinion on it, but just to reconfirm for those who might have missed the previous show, I think you were coming down on the side of, look, with the likes of Di Maria and Pogba in Serie A, it should be a no-lose scenario. That's my take. What's yours?
Yeah, it's another move for the Juventus free transfer retirement village, isn't it? In the nicest way, it's great for shirt sales. No two ways about it. They are big names. You'd be a fool to say they weren't. You can argue if Di Maria's better days are behind him. I think pretty simple argument there. Pogba, it's an interesting one. As you said, as much as he's flopped in the Premier League, he did well at Juventus. Now, you can argue whether that's down to the system, the players around him, whatever, but he's going to a place he was loved and appreciated. So if it was a Premier League club, I'd be thinking these are not the best moves. But actually, I think as you're alluding to that, I think there's real merit in these two. I'm not saying they're going to set the world alight, or be title winners, but free transfers may be a trace description with the amount they'll be taking in wages and the signing on fees, don't get me wrong. But as free transfers, I think there's merit to that business, to be honest.
Two left then. What do we make of the movement of Mr. Witsel to Atletico? That's an interesting one because of the club concerned and the player himself, who is, I think, kind of uniformly highly thought of. What do you make of this?
Good move. No doubts about it. We said before, Atletico, with the 30th of June cut-off, they were in a bit of trouble with their wages, so they didn't sell anyone, so they're going to be limited who they can get. I think they've got a really good player on a free transfer there. I do think, he's defensive-minded midfielder, so we know Simeone loves them to start with. So free transfer, great move for the player, great move for them.
And closer to home, to sort of segue us back into the PL roundup, which we're going to do to finish this show, Mr. Chukwuemeka, his situation at Aston Villa. Let's look at that, because again, we're talking about a guy who's massively highly rated, mentioned in sort of rarefied atmospheres by some of the comparisons that I've heard, and some of the moves potentially that I've heard that could be possible for him, not excluding wearing a red shirt. Talk to us about his situation at Villa to sort of segue us into the Premier League section of the show.
Actually, yesterday, to be fair, it took a turn, so to speak. I mean, if you've not heard of him, highly rated midfielder, one that's really tipped as, I think someone actually called him the next Gerrard at one stage. Maybe wasn't too well known, but naturally, as England have just won the under-19 Euros, the real star there, so that's obviously catapulted him forward into some people's living rooms that way. Like Trev said, a lot of interest. Liverpool are interested in this player, a young English talent, year left. We've heard this before, haven't we? So we were interested. Dortmund have made strong inquiries. We're asking Villa, what are they asking? So Villa had wanted him to sign a contract. They'd really been pushing. There'd been almost that brinkmanship with Villa, like what can we play? What can we pay? Sorry, a youngster. What's the limit? Do we break that limit for this kid? So that's been the debate. However, it's been going on that long. Stevie G has laid down the law. So as of yesterday, he sent him home from their tour, Trev, literally saying, train on your own. You're with us or you're not, so to speak. So it will be fascinating what happens there. Is there any sort of sudden movement? It wouldn't surprise me. At the same time, does Chuck Wemmicker want to ride out the year, so to speak, and go on a free? Something will happen because Villa don't really seem to have any tools in their arsenal. When Stevie G has made that decision to send him home, I'd expect movement on this one quite soon.
I think that's fascinating. That Stevie angle, I think it's really fascinating. And like you say, it speaks to something happening of a quite a dramatic nature in the immediate future, you would have thought. And, around the Premier League, I think what we'll do is, because I saw Guy Drinkle mention it, we might finish with the Zinchenko story, but let's go around and have a look at some of the other ones. Yeah. Wolves have lined up a potential move.
Yeah, Wolves, we know they like the 3-5-2, whichever Portuguese manager is in charge at the time, so they love three at the back. Nathan Collins from Burnley, so wasn't outstanding, but well liked, or didn't really harm his reputation in that Burnley run towards the end where they were nearly surviving. So good move for the player, I'd say. The fee is good. I think we took around the 20 million mark. That's very good business from Burnley because he's relegated. Good move for Wolves, I'd say, as well. They play three centre-backs. They're going to need stock there as well. Good move all round, really.
And just on the Burnley note, this is one of the ones I was going to throw at you. I've seen that they've offloaded Wayne Hennessy to Forest. Yeah. So, again, I mean, I've seen a lot of conflicting reports and opinions about Hennessy. Interestingly, from some people, from some Welsh fellas. So it's quite interesting to see what that turns out like. But another one that's done there, just in relation to what we've been talking about. We have other kind of moves on the go as well. Spurs look like they're close to a deal as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been kind of raging on a bit this summer, and there was the expectation, but it does look like Jed Spence will be done in the near future, possibly depending on when this goes out, even done, so to speak. It was one that the player wants it. Naturally, if you're going to play for Middlesbrough or Spurs, it's a pretty easy pick, isn't it? Realistically, Sean last season, he's not going back to Forest now. They've got Nico. This is just a good move for all parties. I'm actually fascinated to see how he'll do in the Premier League because he was naturally sort of heralded as a superstar talent in the Championship. We know that doesn't always translate, so it will be a fascinating one to watch under Conte as well, who, let's be honest, does expect major things from his wing backs, the distance and the pace they run. So, yeah, be an interesting one to see.
Yeah, interestingly, you bring that up because heading the opposite direction out the door looks like Mr. Reguilon and Sevilla are the target there. Yeah,
the famous for Sevilla, the old Monchi style of sell a player, buy him back for half the price, and watch him be twice the player he was before. There are skills at that. It's interesting, Conte. I mean, he is absolutely ruthless, isn't he? There's no messing around now. He's got that backing. He's got the backing of the player he wants. They're in the Champions League. If you've seen their pre-season training, he is running them to the absolute limit. Like, make no doubts about that. People are passing out type of thing. And in true Conte ruthless style, there's four of them. Reguilon is one of the ones you are not in my plans. Go away. I don't want you in my sight type of thing. So it's a weird one because I wouldn't say he's been bad, so to speak. Maybe not shown as a superstar, but he's not been a bad player, Reguilon. So obviously there'll be takers around Europe, and it looks like Sevilla will be taking him back at a fraction price. So yeah, good move for them probably, and I'm sure he can't wait to get out of London.
Now, another one then, and the second one that I wanted to throw in that I've seen today, and it's from Calcio Mercato, so we can probably maybe not take it that seriously. But interesting that West Ham are being linked with the Sassuolo striker Gianluca Scamacca, who I've heard a lot of good things about, but again will be someone who's not that well known to most people. But they're looking there. There's the talk of a fee around the 40 million mark, with Paris Saint-Germain interested as well. That's an interest one. Has that come on your radar at any stage?
Yeah, West Ham are very, very serious about this. There's a bid on the table. The initial bid was below what they wanted. Like you say, it's around the 40 million mark they're looking for. However, what we know is the bid's not a million miles away. There's not that much for West Ham to come up, shall we say, to sort of meet that marker. Again, this sounds terrible. I'm always worried, Trev, for Italian internationals in the Premier League. History tells us it doesn't always go that well, does it, in all honesty, that jump for Italian internationals to the Premier League. So it might work out. However, it's also a position when I think I look at West Ham's attacking options, it could be brilliant because, he's being fed by the likes of Bowen, can't remember the Moroccan lad's name. They've got some real talents, but ahead of Mikel Antonio, and I'm not really sure, put it that way, but a player with a great international pedigree and a good reputation, but my gut tells me if it happens, Italian internationals do not do that well in the Premier League, so I'll just put that out there.
And before we wrap it up with our final little story from the Premier League, two other clubs with a bit of movement going on are Brentford and Fulham in terms of eyeing deals that are close to getting done.
Yeah, because it's easy just to talk about the big boys, but we should note the other moves. So Fulham and Brentford, we'll do first of all. Yeah, broke their transfer record a couple of times. So Lewis Potter from Hull, sounds sound like a Harry, doesn't he? When I thought about that, nearly missaid it there. Yeah. And the other one, Aaron Hickey, so Scottish international. Interestingly, who ended up at Bologna. So big moves, sort of a fullback, an attacking midfielder, attacker you could call Lewis Potter. So it will be interesting to see how they do. Again, it's a true Brentford move, isn't it? If you take Christian Eriksen as the exception, just for anyone throws that at me, Brentford, non-fashionable players based on specific metrics. That's what they look at. That is their style. So they're in their second season, which, is the big test for the club that stays up or has that first season survival. So it will be interesting. Not fashionable. I'm not even going to pretend I know the players that well either, Trev. So we'll have to see how they do.
And Fulham?
Yeah, this is actually, I got stick off one Fulham fan actually on Twitter, actually messaged me, which I found quite funny because I called Fulham and Bournemouth in the race for 19th at one stage. So Issa Diop, the West Ham centre-half, he's, they're having discussions about him. At one stage, remember in our centre-back crisis, we'd even asked about him. So it's quite interesting. I think if, and it is an if, I'm putting that out, we're not saying this is close. If that happens, that's a great move for Fulham. I really do think that. Fulham's problem, as I said, is always going to be the amount of goals they concede. Mitrovic is not going to score 400 or whatever it is like he did last season in the Premier League. So can they keep them out the other end? If that happens, I think that will be Fulham's move of the summer. I'm not, just for the record, 18th maybe at best, but a good move for them.
Now, I'm not sure if this is going to go out straight afterwards, but in case it is, and in case people are interested in this type of thing, Jimmy Pearce just telling us that Alisson, Joe Gomez, Diogo Jota, Tom Hill, and Fraundorf are all ruled out of the game against Palace in less than 2 hours. And the starting 11 will be Adrian, Milner, Konate, Matip, Tsimikas, Henderson, Jones, Elliott, Ox, Firmino and Diaz. That's just by the by. And we want to finish with a story about a Manchester City player, Mr. Zinchenko, and a move potentially to Arsenal. And also another incoming for City, who are obviously very strongly linked with Cucurella as well. So maybe you might finish our roundup for the day on that story.
Yeah, it's a weird one. Zinchenko is a polarizing player. I think he's a solid left back. He's not a superstar, but he's a solid left back. So, yeah, it seems Arsenal are very much deep in conversations, we know, with City for him. I look at Arsenal and think, where's he going to play? Is he going to get ahead of Kieran Tierney? Injuries tend to be Tierney's problem, don't they? So I think it It's not a bad move, not a brilliant move, but not a bad move for Arsenal. What it does do is City, who very seem to be very frugal this summer, almost not balancing the books. That would be wrong to ever say. But, the net spend, as we love to talk about, won't be as high as people think it is. That will free up that money for Cucurella, who did very well at Brighton. Again, I think given a lot of freedom down that side of the style that Brighton play. So, yeah, it's a weird one, Trev. It comes down to opinions, doesn't it? I think it will be a decent signing for Arsenal. It doesn't answer all their problems, but a decent signing. If Cucurella goes to City, again, City love £50 million backup fullback. Story of Pep's career. They just collects them, loves them, doesn't he? 50 million quid backup fullbacks is what it's about. So he fits that mould. A decent player. We'll file it under decent moves all round.
And that's a good spot for us to end, Dave. Listen, man, I can't really express how much admiration I have for keeping all that information at your fingertips there and ready to go and fill people in as I'm just queuing you up story after story. Fair play for another one. Really appreciate it.
No problems. Pleasure.
And we will talk to you again next week. Myself and Dave will be back with this very show and hopefully more madness from the entertaining section of the transfer market. Until then, take care.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.